Will the designer's quest for revenge swallow up Bruce Wayne and all of Gotham City in the process? Well, let's hop into the pages of Batman issue 91 and find out together, shall we? Alrighty then, so as we join the book, we actually take a small diversion to check on in with the Joker. He's taken over a local bar right now, so we can literally have a captive audience as he tells his side of the story when it comes to meeting the designer. Joker describes that when he and the other villains met the designer all those years ago, it was like going to a haunted house to meet the devil, and while all of the other villains wanted a boon, whether to be rich or smart or powerful, the Joker was different. He wanted none of these things, and instead all he wanted to be was to become that very metaphorical devil himself, and I think we can all agree he ultimately got what he wanted. Now back over with Batman, now that his drone ploy has paid off and Deathstroke has been kept busy long enough, he decides to finally swoop on in another one of his new bat-themed flying machines to deal with the assassin himself. In an interesting bit of characterization, Batman is actually kind of incensed with Deathstroke, saying that he was so close to trying to save the city in a way he never has before to try and rebuild it, yet at every turn people like Deathstroke try and stop him. It's like ever since that first gun in the alley all those years ago, Batman has tried to step up his game to fight smarter and stronger, and yet, despite all of that, criminals keep showing up with bigger and bigger guns. I think the idea here is that the designer's plan is ultimately working and Batman is stretching himself so thin trying to think 10 steps ahead of this guy that he's actually starting to come unwound a little bit. This leading to a point wherein Batman actually just straight up asks Deathstroke to stop what he's doing, but naturally Slade never will, not so long as he's getting paid, so instead Batman decides that they should both take a tumble to the ground in what is probably the greatest game of chicken ever played. Now from there we check back on in with what Catwoman and Harley are doing. Selina decides to check on in with the other assassins that Batman had taken captive at the end of the previous issues, only to discover that they're already gone. The designer chooses this moment to chime back on in through the Riddler speakers, as we are once again reminded that his fight is ultimately with the villains of Gotham and not with Batman. He says that the assassins have been let go as they have already served their purpose, and that they're not the ones that Catwoman and Harley should be worried about. Instead, they should be worried about these zombified members of the GCPD SWAT team that are now closing in around their location. Once again, they've yet to explain how exactly the designer is able to pull this zombifying feat off. Catwoman, remembering that the Riddler had actually rigged his base of operations to explode, decides to do just that. Her and Harley narrowly escape, and they decide that if this is the way the designer wants to play, then maybe they should beat him at his own game. Mainly by robbing Bruce Wayne of his fortune before the designer can get a chance to. Now, it's not just Harley and Catwoman who are dealing with zombified cops either. When Deathstroke and Batman hit the ground, they too are besieged by the same forces. The designer comes on these screens again and tells them that Deathstroke has also served his purpose and as such is also excused. Granted, Slade doesn't want to leave now because that very much sounds like he's not getting paid. The designer also has one final trick up his sleeve as well that he's ready to spring on our hero Batman, and that is the Riddler isn't so much his hostage anymore, but instead a willing accomplice. After all, Nigma wanted to prove he was smarter than everyone else in Gotham, and if he manages to outsmart both Batman, the cops, and Deathstroke in one fell swoop, then that's gonna prove a lot, isn't it, as the comic comes to a close. And so that was Batman issue number 91, everybody, and overall I thought it was pretty solid. It's nice to see Tynion get to spend a little bit more time with the Joker. I like that his version is pretty different from Snyder's version, but also pretty familiar. I'm actually really enjoying the kind of buddy cop relationship that's beginning to form between Catwoman and Harley, and I like that they have their own side business going on completely independent from Batman. I mentioned early on that I thought one of the smartest things Tynion actually did when it came to showing the fight between Deathstroke and Batman in the first issue of this new series was actually just not show it at all, mainly because, well, we've kind of seen that fight to death. Here, though, we just kind of get a more generic version of that fight, made only a little bit more interesting by the fact that Batman was willing to play chicken with Deathstroke till the final minute. Overall, I'd feel comfortable giving this one another 8 out of 10. This book continues to be consistent.
Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.